One of the simplest things I feel like that needs to be said is I feel like in this space, and it's funny because it's a little bit counter to the digital diaspora, but this is something that's being produced by Black people. I've seen a lot on like Twitter Spaces and different projects is that like people will segregate different groups into like this is a woman in Web3 panel, this is a Black artist in NFTs, show or things like that. And I've often encouraged people that are putting together projects or panels or IRL events or anything like that to just include these artists in the mix, because I feel like segmenting us off often puts across this messaging of othering, which is not what we want. We just want access to the same in opportunities.
Matt, happy NFT Now podcasting. How you feeling?
I'm always excited when it's a podcasting time.
That's right. That's right. Well, who we got lined up today?
Really, really special guest. We have Diana Sinclair, 18-year-old visual artist and curator, taking the NFT space by storm. You may know her from her landmark Whitney Houston sale. She did 4 pieces of artwork in collaboration with the Whitney Houston estate on the OneOf platform, and the centerpiece of that collection, which was an unreleased Whitney recording, sold for just about $1 million in auction. And as a curator, she's also the brains behind Digital Diaspora, the exhibit that debuted last June on Juneteenth and is coming up again this year with the focus and mission of really uplifting Black artists in the space. Diana is wise beyond her years and doing a lot to really push things forward in the space.
Yeah, no, it was a really fun conversation. I think her art is incredible. I think how she's navigated both the traditional art world and this NFT Web3 world has been phenomenal. Really doing all sorts of amazing things to create great art, bring together community, and help set a precedent for how artists can prosper in this new age. So really excited to dive in. Before we do, if you haven't already, do want to encourage you to go check out our weekly newsletter, nftnow.com, once a week, every Wednesday. Send through a digest of everything that's been happening in the NFT landscape so you can get involved. But let's get involved with this episode. Diana Sinclair.
Diana, so glad to have you on the NFT Now podcast. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm really tired after doing all these events and things for Freeze Week, but it's really amazing. So I'm having a good time.
That's what's important. Love to see you getting into the mix. Well, really excited to
Yeah.
have you on. Really excited to have you on. For those who don't know, let's just start with a little bit about your background and how you got into NFTs.
Oof, my background. I got into NFTs about a year ago, right after winning the biggest national high school arts competition in the United States. I won that in photography. And I was actually having a really tough time because that was my formal introduction into the traditional art world in a way. I just didn't feel at the time that I really gelled with that. So I was going through like a lot of inner turmoil about it. And then my partner at the time started getting into 3D art. They were on Twitter and talking to a lot of different artists who, like at the time, 3D artists were the ones dominating the NFT industry. Um, would you call it an industry? I guess the NFT space. Um, and they introduced me to it. I started talking to a lot of people. I was able to kind of form a community around me, which was really great. And the first time that I'd experienced something like that. And from there, I just started minting my photography. I was like one of the first photographers in the space minting my work last year. And from then, it's been great. My career, pretty much my like formal art career got started in the NFT space, which is kind of interesting going back and forth now between the traditional art world and the NFT world. But yeah, it was great.
No, I love that. And it's interesting, too, as far as just the inroads and traction that NFTs have been making within the traditional art world. I mean, you have like Christie's and Sotheby's doing all these activations, becoming very kind of great platforms for artists in the space. And I think they're seeing lots of traction as well. Like from your perspective, having experience in both worlds, like what has been some of the response from the traditional art world about NFTs, and the good and the bad? Don't hold back.
It really depends on who you're talking to. I mean, as like everyone has their own opinion. I have some horror stories from people in the traditional art world. Like, one time I was at an event, I had just come off a panel, and this sculptor came up, and I had brought my mother because she usually doesn't watch me speak, and I brought him, and like he was just screaming at her about how like I need to have a traditional art education. I need to go to college. I need to do this. And it started getting like very hostile. But then, so that I've had like those sorts of interactions. I've also had, interactions of with people being super supportive, encouraging. A lot of traditional art folks have asked me, actually, like previous mentors have asked me to, be their introduction into the NFT space. So it's I think the NFT world is a bit polarizing. I mean, I feel like that much is very clear. Uh, but I think over time people will come around, and if not, then they'll be left behind. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and it's been really interesting seeing your own career, kind of bridging the photography side, the art side, and then also even getting into like the music collaboration side. Obviously, the big Whitney Houston auction. I'm just curious to hear a little bit about like all of these different mediums, how they come together, and where do you like really draw inspiration for your creative process?
I draw inspiration from so much. I draw inspiration from conversations, and then like putting my visuals, like pulling visuals from my head, from inspiration from that, from films, from music videos. One of my like biggest inspirations, which people will hear me reference all the time, is Solange's "When I Get Home" film, like album film. I love that. I've watched it so many times. It's like this weird experimental, like just saga, and I love it. Um, reading sometimes articles, social media, of course. I mean, that's just an easy way to consume a lot. I get a lot of inspiration from TikTok, which is a very Gen Z thing to say. But yeah, I mean, anything and everything. As an artist, I try to consume as much as possible, but I feel like I need to do more intentional consumption because I've just, as my career has changed a lot, I've been pulled in a lot of different directions. And I'm realizing now, which is a good time because of like the bear market, or the speculation of a bear market, that this is the time to take it a little bit slower and like go back to what the core of my practice is, which is, making art and being intentional with my time. So yeah, I would say it's from like anything and everything, which is kind of like a lame answer, but it's very true.
I like it. I like it. I also draw lots of life inspiration from TikToks. Um,
Come on, the most creative people are there. I honestly believe that because there's the music aspect. People have to think about how they're presenting their ideas in a cinematic way. And then I think that the format just encourages people to be experimental. Like there's really no set algorithm, so you can just try and throw like a whole bunch of different darts at the wall. So I've seen the wildest stuff on there, and I don't know. I've seen so much cool stuff on there. Yeah.
For sure. And I'll just add on to that. I feel like it's relative to lots of other social media. It's really built and centered around like joy and entertainment. Like I think on
Mhm.
Instagram, there's so much status games and like
Yes.
the highlight reel of your whole life. Like
Yep.
Twitter, admittedly, is very like supportive, but also like you can go like there's a dark side of Twitter as well. I think no, TikTok's very kind of positive, entertaining place. But to shift gears a bit before we continue too deep down the TikTok rabbit hole, what the Whitney Houston auction, like
Yes.
$1 million, like
Yes.
unreleased demo. This was a magical moment. I think it was truly incredible to see. Can you just kind of walk us through how this came together and what your approach was in this project?
That was my first major project that didn't just center me, which was very interesting. I have worked on a lot of different projects of like conceptualize my own ideas, and especially with the NFT space, it encouraged me to like put together projects. But this was the first time that, I'd collaborated with an artist like this where her family reached out to, or her family reached out through OneOf to, put this together, and I got to sit down and hear about Whitney. So that was like how it started. They automatically wanted me as the artist to do this drop, and that was before they'd even learned about me and my background. They'd just see my artwork. But then when we like started really sitting down and talking about Whitney, all these similarities came up. Like she was also from New Jersey. At the time of her recording that track, she was 17, and I was 17 when I made the artwork for it. Um, that, and then we also share the same middle name, which is a little wild. So we sat down, we talked, I got to learn a lot about Whitney and just, their love for her. And they really gave me minimal direction. They just really expressed that they wanted me to keep Whitney relevant, which I was like, Whitney's always going to be relevant. But they wanted me to like add a fresh twist to her work. So I, talked about what I wanted to do, which was focusing on Black women and the love, familial and sisterly and motherly love that I feel like a lot of us have for one another, and just focusing on Black beauty in general, which Whitney showed throughout her entire career. If you even look at her music videos, there's just a huge presence of like Black women being like, there's just like that love there. So I wanted to touch on that. We had some great conversations about the work that I was going to make. I didn't have a lot of time, which was pressure in a good way. I work well under pressure. And then basically just went out. That was my first time having to put together a shoot like that. It was crazy. I created like a whole call sheet. We had models. I hired stylists, two makeup artists. Like it was a whole production, and we had several locations. The shoot day was beautiful, like just full of Black women that were like leading the makeup, leading the styling, the shooting, obviously. Um, we were playing Whitney's music the entire time, and then afterwards, I, took all the footage, we edited it, we put it together. The final work is a looping video that goes to the track. Um, that's the one that's sold on auction, the one that I'll never be able to put out, but it's there, it exists. And then yeah, the smaller artworks, I made Whitney relevant. I threw in my own design work on top of like I think some photos that were actually from Teen Vogue, or like some like old modeling photos of Whitney. Don't quote me on the Teen Vogue one, but if it was, that would be very interesting because one of my biggest like articles was the Teen Vogue feature. Um, and I did some animation and glitch on top of that, and created the video artworks. So, and then after that, it was just kind of like promoting it, talking about it. The actual auction day, we set zero expectations. So whenever I would ask anybody what they thought it was going to go for, no one would tell me. No one on any team would tell me. They're like, "Oh, well, we'll just see. We'll just see." So the entire day was super intense, just kind of like sitting at the phone and the computer. And at the time, we were on Clubhouse too, just watching that happen. Which I had like an interesting reaction. It was a good day though.
Yeah, I'm sure. I remember that well. I remember, that was a big moment in the NFT
Yes.
space, and definitely a big moment in your career. I'm sure a life changing moment. I'm sure things accelerated pretty quickly after that. As the space already moves fast enough, but when you have like a kind of one of those landmark like breakthrough type moments, I'm just curious to hear what was that like for you? The aftermath of the Whitney auction.
Uh, I'll get real for a moment. That was a hard moment to process. Um, I don't think that I handled it very well, and I think I learned a lot from that actually, because in the moment there was just a lot of attention. Um, my Twitter was blowing up. I couldn't open my Twitter without getting like hundreds of notifications and messages. I was getting emails, and at the time, I was also going through some inner turmoil because even though it was such like a big moment, I feel like, the space can be a bit desensitizing in a way. With it being so digital, I was experiencing the moment entirely alone, even though I was in a clubhouse of like hundreds of people. Once the clubhouse shut off, I was just kind of like alone. And I didn't feel it in that moment. So I actually receded for quite some time. I would say like several weeks. It was only like in February when I started to step back into the space, when made my Twitter more active. I was tweeting some more. I was like posting and like starting to re-engage with my relationships online. Um, but I feel like that is an important point to bring up because even moments like that are very flashy, um, and very beautiful. We were able to donate a lot of money to the Whitney Houston Foundation. Uh, they're not always as impactful, I think, as some people would think, or like they can be very hard on artists and I think sensitive people in general. And I've heard a lot of other successful artists say the same thing. So I think that mental health is an important thing that we're talking about, especially now. Um, and I do wish I had more help with like dealing with that moment, but I think now I know that like once it comes again, that I'll be better prepared and I'll know how to handle something like that, handle the attention or things like that instead of like holding myself away, be able to deal with it more productively. So
Yeah, no, powerful journey, interesting journey of growth, and exciting to see all the continued success and how you've been able to adapt and continue to prosper. So, in that vein, I'd love to dive deeper into like the digital diaspora. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of vision behind this project? There's been some fun stuff to date, but I know it's still kind of early, and you have grander ambitions.
yeah, the Digital Diaspora, that was a pioneering show that I curated last year for Juneteenth. It was one of the first like physical digital NFT parties, auctions, exhibitions. We did it back in June. So it was interesting. It was like we were kind of like crawling out of COVID, but we were able to have like um, a block party moment at Super Chief Gallery NFT in New York. While also we collaborated with Foundation, and they put together this like beautiful website and auction page where we had the work of like 16 or 18 Black artists to celebrate, Juneteenth, and also put a spotlight on Black artists in the space because at the time, especially, Black artists were being really overlooked, and it was like quite clear. I don't know if I would say that it's much better now. I think that there's definitely been a lot of improvement, and I hope that the digital diaspora was a part of that. But yeah, we put together that show to spotlight artists, not just in the Web3 space, but also Web2. So New York City, the Link NYC screens, they donated 1 million impressions throughout June. I think 2 weeks in June to showcase all of the artwork uh, from these Black artists. So we had their work all over the 5 boroughs, showing all over the place. It was beautiful. It was also NFT artists. It was really cool to have like our work put out in such a positive way. Because also at the time, like I don't know, I feel like people forget that we got so much positive press for the space at that time when the narrative really was, about like energy and NFTs are killing the planet and NFTs are just like white crypto bros and like there was a lot of negative press going out. So the digital diaspora was able to bring in like we were in the Observer, Fortune magazine, Teen Vogue, The Guardian, and it was all about like how much crypto and NFTs could actually not just like support artists, but like create a world in which and that was like more equitable for Black people and artists and I think just people in general. Um, so it was a great project, one that I think did really well, and I hope we're planning to bring it back this June, which interestingly last year it didn't, but this year it's going to be during NFT NYC, which is going to be really interesting. Juneteenth during NFT NYC is I think it's going to be really fun. So right now we're in the middle of planning it. We're getting the artists together. We have we're having like the same core, but like a different plan of approaching it, which I feel like is going to be even bigger and better. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
I love that, and so important to be doing that as a curator in the space, to be really providing a platform for Black creators and for Black artists. As you said, there's still a lot of work to be done to really level the playing field and afford equitable opportunities across the board. Um, Diana, I'd love to hear your thoughts too. What can the NFT community at large do to better support diversity and inclusion in the space, day to day, week to week, month to month?
One of the simplest things I feel like that needs to be said, is I feel like in this space, and it's funny because it's a little bit counter to the digital diaspora, but this is something that's being produced by Black people. I've seen a lot on like Twitter Spaces and different projects is that like people will segregate different groups into like this is a woman in Web3 panel, this is a Black artist in NFTs, show or things like that, and I I've often encouraged people that are putting together projects or panels or IRL events or anything like that to just include these artists in the mix because I feel like segmenting us off um, often puts across this messaging of othering, which is not what we want. We just want access to the same in opportunities. The digital diaspora, is a little bit different because it's about like really pushing the spotlight and acknowledging that there is inequity, acknowledging that we are looking for equality, and it's a project that's not just for crypto, but it's also like for the Web2 world, and it's about really trying to elevate these artists' careers because of that inequity. But I feel like I've seen a lot of people kind of just resort to laziness when they create these othering panels and projects and things like that instead of just working to include like a diverse group in all the things that they're doing because there's the crypto, the NFT space, it's global. It's really not just like white American men that are in this space. So I feel like that's like one of my easy action steps that I suggest to people, and it's just about being conscious about your decisions and the way that you approach people and projects.
Yeah, no, really love that perspective. Totally agree. When it comes to like supporting other projects and other people, what are some of the favorite like other artists or different projects or communities that really inspire you?
Oh, projects and artists. Well, one of my favorite artists, I have two favorite artists that I'll shout out in the space. Niall Ashley, they're a non-binary Black painter from London. Yes, Matt is nodding because I talk about them all the time. I was just on a panel a few days ago. Matt was there, and I was just like, Niall Ashley. I love them.
I love it.
They are they're true artists. I don't really know what to say. Like they work with code. They like create AI programs, paint, street art, performance art, 3D. They do like short films. Like there's really nothing that Nile doesn't do that I feel like doesn't elevate the medium that they're working in. And they do so much multimedia work that really embraces the technology, especially like with NFTs. And it's just beautiful. So I love the work that they do. Another artist who's a really good friend of mine and one that I constantly work to support is Tyler Gibbons. He's a queer Black artist from New York City. He creates these like awesome characters that blend like gender and it's 3D, but it's also film and cinema. I mean, obviously, I have style and things that I like, but his work is just really cool, and I think that something that interests me about it is you can just easily see how he can turn the style that he has of the characters that he creates into like a brand or like really build it out like kind of like how Hello Kitty is like one little character but she has a whole world. Like I can see that for any of the things that Tyler creates. So yeah, those are two artists that I definitely support, and then one project which I only hold one of but I think that they're like valid to shout out is Crypto Coven. I went wild when I saw them on Twitter. I don't know if you remember that, Matt. I think I saw you liking
I
some of the tweets.
do. I do.
Dude,
I love the art for Crypto Coven.
they're so cute, but it was also the first project that I ever saw with hair like mine. I'd never seen another project that had curly hair. And when I saw that the what do you call it? The features, what do you call them? The generative,
The
the
traits,
features.
the traits or
Yes,
the
the
attributes.
traits,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
traits. Thank you. Wow, I'm really not
I
on my
got
and
you.
see, this is it's because I'm at freeze right now. I'm in my traditional art brain. But no, yeah, the traits of the hair were so different and the skin colors and the eyes, and I was just like really astounded to see that they put that much like thought into, creating those features. And then that really made me think about the fact that I hadn't seen another project really do that. It's like seeing a little bit with World of Women, but Crypto Coven was the first time that I saw like Bantu knots and braids and curly hair and cornrows and all these different things. It was really cool. So I feel like that needs to be recognized, and the team and community was really sweet. When I was tweeting about like how badly I wanted one that looked like me, someone actually just sent me one. It was so sweet, and at the time they were valued at an ETH or more than an ETH. And this person was just like, "Oh, this one looks like you. I'm gonna send it to you. What's your wallet?" And it was great. Yeah. So I really like their project, and yeah.
I love that. I love that. Um, it's really cool to hear you speak both about your own work and also about other artists that you appreciate. And I know that being a curator is a really important part of one of the very important hats that you wear. You know, you wear many hats, and I like that.
For
And
many
I think
hats.
the
Don't we
NFT
all?
space is, don't we all? The NFT space is well suited for those who like to wear multiple hats. But it's really cool to hear how you can kind of you have your own creative vision for your own artistic output, and then you can also really appreciate, you've got the eye for others, and not everybody has that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on like what your approach is to curation as a curator, and the importance of curation in this kind of like nascent new like crypto art NFT space.
Curation. Actually, on the topic of curation, I feel like one of the most important like acts of curating is like the artist curating themselves. And I spoke about this on a panel with Joey the photographer just a few weeks ago. And it was such a small, it was just him and I on this panel. I didn't expect it to be like so so it was an important panel. It was weird. It was small, but we were really spitting some important knowledge. It was cool. But one of the things that we talked about was how like photographers, we've seen a lot of photographers like since we joined, like have entered this space, and they have like no idea how to curate their selves, like their work. And I feel like especially with photography being medium where you can just click 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 click, and you're at the end of a shoot you have like 500 photos. Seeing like photographers look like they meant like all 500 of those photos, like the one that they took by accident. Um, and in a space like this, like where you are a business and you have to manage your own market as an artist, as a business person, like curating the work that you put out and being super discerning about what you put on the market, I feel like is super important. And I think that that's going to be really important to the NFT market. And like as hopefully like during this bear market, I hope that a lot of artists think about that because that's going to be really important for curation in the space. And then obviously like that's important for artists for themselves, but then also like curators then have to turn around and look at the sort of work that artists are putting out, and be discerning themselves of the artists whose markets are viable for selling their work. I mean, if that's what the curating is for, selling someone's work, which is pretty typical of the traditional art world. I've seen a lot of NFT shows which have just been for like display, but a lot of them are also like for auction or for like trying to get artists' work sold. So I feel like that's really important. For myself, I mean, the digital diaspora was itself like when I did that project, it was about pulling artists because it was a bit different. I mean, it was an art show, but it was also about spotlighting artists who had been in the space. So we'd picked artists who had been in the space for several months at that point, and who'd like consistently been concerned about their market, been concerned about their output, and had really shown that they were super integrated into the community, but for whatever reason, they were just like not being acknowledged the same as their peers. So we pulled artists that had a little bit more of like platforms and whose artwork had developed a decent market at that point. And then we pulled artists who had a bit of a smaller market, didn't have like the same community around them to try and like create this dichotomy so that they could be uplifted as well with those other artists. This time around, the curation is based around pulling like the heavy hitters, the heavy black hitters in the space. And we have some really big names that have already confirmed participation, which is really exciting. So it's really about, creating
Any
a,
exclusives for the
oh,
NFT Now listeners?
any
The
alpha,
alpha? Yeah, come on.
any alpha. I
Love the
mean,
alpha.
one alpha, I'm curating it this time instead of solo curating it. I'm gonna curate it with Drifter. So that's a big one.
Ooh,
Very cool.
Yes,
that's
Drifter
huge.
shoots. Yes, it's and he's very dedicated to making it into a big event too. So I'm sure maybe the digital diaspora this year will be held on a rooftop. Who knows?
Hopefully not too high of a rooftop, because
Yeah.
Hopefully not too
I
high
can't
of a
rooftop
rooftop.
those. I can't stomach
Yeah.
those heights.
Everyone that walks into the event has to wear a pair of Vans. He's gonna make it a Drifter shoots. No, I was like, like you have to be very careful. But I was like, the digital diaspora, that's my baby. Like, we have to be very careful about this. But yeah, no, that's gonna be cool. And of course, like we're both gonna put in a piece. So
That's exciting. Super
yeah,
excited.
yeah.
Um, so I'm curious too, and I mean, as an artist, as somebody that's been creating art for a while before even kind of breaking into the NFT space, like, how do you feel NFTs have changed the creative canvas? Yeah, just leave it at
How have
that.
I feel that they've changed the creative canvas? Well, I can speak to like personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I grew up without any direction really with my art, and I was just able to be super experimental, and I was creating like whatever it is that I wanted to. Um, when I got older and I started getting like a little bit more experience with the traditional art world, like all of these walls started to be put up around me of like what I could and couldn't do and like what the right path of an artist was. I feel like when I entered the NFT space, I saw a lot of those walls get broken down. And actually, like my experimentation just like skyrocketed. At first, like I minted the photography portfolio that I put into Young Arts last year, which was the arts competition that I won. But after getting into that, I started really starting. I was able to explore the experimental like video work that I always wanted to create, and I saw that that was selling, and I was making GIFs, and I was working with like multimedia layering and performance art. I was creating these artworks that I really didn't feel supported to make before. But opening up my market and my community really showed me that like people wanted to see that from me. So for me, if I feel like it like expanded my creative canvas in a way, and I've heard the same from a lot of artists that, and I mean that was actually one of my favorite experiences, especially last year. I would just scroll through the foundation homepage. I would see all this wild stuff, all these wild animations, and like these I consider like my work sometimes like the Spotify visualizers. Like I would see stuff that look like visualizers, and it was just so cool. And that really showed me. I was like, damn, like people really do want to see experimental weird stuff, or people really do want to see video work or performance art or whatever. And it was cool to be exposed to that. So I think that that has been the experience of a lot of people in the space.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I know you're very active, working on many different things all at once. What are some of the upcoming projects that you have in the works that you can speak to and let us know more about now?
Oof, man, what don't I have going on? Um, well, obviously, bringing the digital diaspora back. That one's going to be a huge chunk of my time coming up, but I'm glad because it's a passion project and people all throughout the year have been asking when it was going to come back. So I'm glad that we can finally say that we're working on it and that it's going to be a big event. And I think that holding it during such an important week is going to it's going to be really special. I mean, last year we were able to bring people out to New York for the digital diaspora, like create an event that encouraged people to fly out and things. But this time, like everyone's going to be here, so I'm excited for to see what sort of crowd that it brings this time. And then personally, I mean, I'm working on a series upcoming for an auction house, which will be my auction house debut, which I've been, I over the past few months before 2022, I was like really wanted to do it, but I felt like being patient finally brought like the opportunity that I was always looking for, which is good. It shows you that like patience is good. I was waiting. I was like, all right, when am I gonna get my auction house moment? And then we put one together that's it's going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be like later in the year. And then in the meantime, I'm working on a photography collection actually. So I am taking Polaroids of people in the community to document what the community looks like right now, to document identity, talk about the demographics of the space, really be able to visualize that, and then also like to speak to more of like the gamification and like the NFT space as more of a I don't know, being like less about the art and more about the market in some cases. It's a bit of a social experiment to see how people's identities and their role in the community will play on their image in the blockchain. So we're gonna mint the photos, and I think it's gonna be really cool. I mean, like I was saying, if I mint Matt, like I'm gonna put that up for like 50 ETH or more, maybe 100
That's
ETH.
right. Let them know.
Exactly. Like that's a valuable photo right there. That's a valuable
Blue
member of
chip
the
right here.
community. Absolutely. So I don't know. I think like every time I think about that, I'm like, that's gonna be really interesting to see how that plays out, which is like a little devious, but at the same time, like I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, I was able to design and like build well, I didn't build it, we had it built, like this portable photo studio that we set up at South by Southwest, and it was just at the Unfold Gallery like block party event, and I was just in the middle of an NFT event. People were lined up for hours, and people sat down. I took their Polaroid. We had a conversation. I was sitting in that chair for seven hours with people lined up the entire time. But it was really dope. And so we're working on that, and we're going to keep shooting it and keep adding to the series coming up. And I think that'll be a cool way to document how the space will transform and who's present right now, who stays through the bear market, um, things like that. So yeah, that's kind of like my photo collection that has been a long time coming.
I love it. I love it. Well, amazing to see all the progress you've had to date. I know still just getting started, so can't wait to see what's coming up. And really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your perspectives and insights with us today.
Thank you both. I had such a good time. I'm like the biggest NFT Now fan. So as you guys can always see, I'm like the cheerleader, hanging out with Matt, gassing up Matt.
Hey.
You too now, Sam. Now that we know each other, I'm gonna be like your biggest fan too.
There we go. I'm here for it. Let's
There
get
we
it.
go.
Vice versa.
That's
Vice versa.
that's my secret. That's my secret. I've had Diana Sinclair support,
Listen, magical fairy dust. That's really what it is.
That's right. That's right.
Sprinkle it on all the
Amazing.
NFT Now projects.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
take
here
it.
for it.
We'll
We're
take it.
Yeah, just by the pounds, please.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Diana. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. All right. See you guys.
Man, really enjoyed that conversation. What stood out to you, Matt?
Yeah, I loved just like those moments of realness when she kind of took us back to that life-changing moment of that Whitney Houston auction. It would have been really easy just to say how awesome it was, but she really she was real about it and talked about sort of that alienation, that feeling of kind of being detached from it all. It is something that a lot of artists in this space go through. And I think she spoke to that in real stark terms, and kudos to her for that. I loved getting her perspective on curation, the importance of curation, and also, of course, the importance of uplifting and supporting diversity and inclusion in the space. Everything she's doing with the digital diaspora, I think, is so needed. So really, really can't say enough about everything that she's doing to push things forward.
Yeah, 1000%. Definitely be sure to check out our work. Stay tuned for Digital Diaspora. Really excited for that event this year at NFT NYC. That NFT NYC this year too, man. It's just a couple weeks out. Going to shape up to be super, super special event. Really excited to have all the community come together IRL. You know, it's going to be lots of caffeine carrying me through all those different events.
You and me both.
But yeah, exactly. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, for your continued support. We are truly grateful. Best of luck with all your projects, and we will be back next week. Until then, we out.